Namaste and welcome to Sarva and Sampann. This podcast is a space to celebrate the voices of women from India and the Indian diaspora. Here we shine a light on their journeys, their identities, values, strengths, and achievements, not to seek validation, but to inspire learning and growth through real stories and shared wisdom. If you like what you hear, do share and subscribe to this channel. And if you're interested in being a guest or would like to recommend someone for the podcast, you can find the email address to connect with me in the description below. My guest today is a woman who values courage, perseverance, and a vision for art in the community. Her strengths include complex understanding and curiosity about the technique and scholarship of the power of dance within its social context. I'm really excited to welcome Dr. Elizabeth Kurien on Sarva and Sampann. So great to see you, great to have you on the show. How have you been?
I've been great, Anu.
I can't wait to get started with this conversation, get to know you and get to know about your journey in life. And so without further ado, let's get started. Our first segment is all about your childhood. It's called Bachchpan ke Din. The goal here is to understand who were the early influencers, what were the early influences like, what laid the foundation for the person that you've become today. So all about you from the time you were born to the time you grew up and went to high school.
Thank you, Anu, for having me in this show. I'm very glad to be here to get to know you as well. And I'll try my best to put it as succinct as possible. So going back from my childhood influences, I was born in Cochin, Kerala. And from memory, my biggest influences have been my parents, both my father and my mother. And equal to it stays my guru, Srimati Shyamala Surendran, also from Kerala. She runs the Dharani School of Performing Arts. And that's where I developed as a dancer. And that's where I was mentored as a dancer. And I continue my long-lasting loving relationship with my guru. And those are the three personalities that loom large. My mother is no more, but her legacy definitely continues. Just like I'm sure most people can relate to this, their parents and their one or more teachers being, the most influential aspects of you. And I think I'm very privileged to say that.
That's the foundation, right? The people that are the closest to you, that nurture you, and that you develop those close bonds with. And great to know about your guru as well. How were you as a kid? What was your personality like? What was your schooling like? Talk to me a little bit about your friends. So shed light on those aspects.
So after I passed 12th grade is when I came to know, well, my childhood might have been slightly different from most others. My father was a sea captain. So being in the Merchant Navy and then working as a pilot for the Cochin Port Trust, I lived in a place called Wellington Island in Cochin. And that life itself was very different from regular mainland life. So we grew up amongst seafarers and all the stories of their adventures, and my parents going on voyages, and my brother and I also joining them for our summer holidays. So it was already a life which was filled with stories, adventures. Anytime my parents' friends got together, which was very often, we would always hear stories of adventures, of going to different lands. And I just thought this is life, this is very common because this is what I heard all along till I completed my 12th grade. And I just want to add that my guru's husband was also a seafarer. So these things really combined very well in my childhood growing up. But after I completed 12th grade and went out into the real world is when I knew, hey, mainland life is very different. There's a lot of, normal things what we find today.
Yeah.
So that has definitely been an influence in my growing up, in my, I think, mental makeup, that adventure is part of life. And both my parents encouraged me. My love for dance just started blooming Well, to begin, my mom started me off on dance at the age of 3, too young. So a dance teacher used to come home. But the fact that she got me started on that, and then it just continued around age 9 is when I met my guru, so to speak, for my life, Srimati Shyamala Surendran. And from then on, she mentored and helped me, shaped me into the dancer I am today. My father took us, both my brother and I, to many, many performances, not just Bharatanatyam, but Kerala is a land rich in performing arts, from Kūṭiyāṭṭam, Kathakali, Mohiniyattam, Teyyam, So we've gone there. We would sit through the night, just walk around, run around. But those things definitely played a large role. And just their love for arts, that definitely sat in my mind. And that's probably where it all got triggered.
And it's not every child that can have those kinds of experiences, adventure and exposure to arts and culture. And what a rich tapestry of experiences growing up in God's own country.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's why I say it wasn't until I, kind of finished my schooling that I got to know him. Some people really long to learn an art form and didn't have a chance. But in that manner, I just want to say I feel very fortunate that was not even a second thought. It was an expectation that an art is part of life. So.
And not just the opportunity that you came your way and your mother encouraged you and supported you so much, but also what you did with that. That is, I guess, very, very important, because there are a lot of people who also get the opportunity, who are exposed to these art forms, but don't really go anywhere with it, right?
Yes.
So all the credit goes to you for, taking it forward. And we'll learn more about your dance journey. But in our next segment, which is Ye Kahaan Gaye Hum, it's about where life took you after your high school. So after that very exciting and rich childhood, what happened? So this is the time when you went away to college, and from that point on, all the way till present day.
Yes. So my plan by the time I was 10 or 11, I don't know, I'd already set my mind that dance will be a huge part of my life, and that never left me. So I did talk to my parents about wanting to pursue dance and in education, as well as probably, into research. I just love dance scholarship too, and dance performances and all that. And so the three of them together, I don't know if you've heard of Professor Chandrasekhar. He was a very well-known dancer. My guru and my parents took me actually to MS University, Baroda, because I wanted to pursue my BA in dancing. And that was my interest. But at that point, Professor Chandrasekhar was retiring. And so he advised me to continue my dance schooling and, continue my college and then apply for my master's, so that I would continue learning as a dancer. And when it comes to my master's, I go preferably to Central University at that time. So that's how my dance education got shaped. However, I learned a lot from it. I did my undergrad in English literature, and that also opened up a lot of, my mind and my spirit to the word. We use lyrics a lot in dancing. We use words a lot, of course, in life too. But the beauty of the word, the depth of how you can use, the beauty of language and the importance of it, all that kind of helped build me up as I continued to grow as a person. And then I ended up with doing my master's in Central University, Hyderabad. And that was a very unique experience. For the first time, I had stepped out of Kerala at that time, it was Andhra Pradesh, not Telangana was not yet formed. And although I traveled many places, even outside of India, this was really trying to live in a culture that I was not used to, even though I'm an Indian. But from moving as a Malayali so the language and everything, from the colors, the saris I saw people wearing, the jewelry, and the pace of how they speak, the gestures they use, everything was new. And then studying there at Central University in the very living room of Sarojini Naidu, all this was just very, very impactful for me. And then coming to know my dance mates, including Kiran, who you and I have a common connection with, Kiran and Ani, and there are many dance mates and so many artists that we saw in the making, and painters, theater artists. All this influenced me for my master's program as well. And then I moved to the US right after my graduation, moved to the US to California. And then by God's grace, I was able to continue my education in dance. And so I continued on for a research work.
Looks like, this was all meant to be, right? Predestined that you would pursue this passion of yours and not just pursue, but take it to its logical conclusion. You are a dance guru, you teach dance, and you've also done a PhD. So we'll move on to our next segment, which nicely segues from this point on as we talk about your work. So this is Kaam Ki Baat. And here I'd love to learn about, what was it that you researched? What was that subject in dance? And how has that influenced your instruction methodology? And what have been some challenges that you've seen? So lots of questions, which I'm sure, as I hear you, we're going to go back and forth and bounce off each other. So we'll get started on that one.
Let me begin with what was my inspiring point for my research. And that goes right back to my childhood memories, where my dad used to take me for Kūṭiyāṭṭam, or Indian Sanskrit. That's the only living Indian Sanskrit dance drama tradition in India today. And it was declared by UNESCO in 2001 as Masterpiece of Human Heritage. At that time, in the 80s, it was just a practice at the temple theaters. But going there, going to the Kūṭambalam, watching this and seeing, that's a stand-up comedian, really. The Chakyar kind of acts like a stand-up comedian. He freely gives out comments to whoever enters. So the beauty of it was that it was not like a westernized audience where you come at a perfect time, sit prim and proper and leave it up. You could come and go. The only thing is you would be open to the comments of the Chakyar. So when we entered the seating area, the Chakyar commented in his commentary, he kind of weaves in the real life. So he commented about how people just saunter in whenever they feel like. And I was so embarrassed because I knew it was about me. And I told my dad I want to go back. Because I felt, oh my God, we did something. But my dad, he was just smiling. He just had us sit there. And somehow that it just placed a seed in me, because after that, I saw how the Chakyar was bringing art and life together. And that was a powerful moment, which I never realized till I started thinking more and more about what is it that's energizing me to want to do this, learn more about dance, not just in performance, but also in theory and in scholarship. So that became my trajectory. And that was my research on what happens to a niche art form that's just performed by caste-based artists. They're traditional artists. Nobody could, outside of that particular caste of Chakyars and Nangyars, could come in and learn at that point. But once UNESCO declared it, it became open to the public. So anyone can come and learn. And then something happens there, something very interesting. You go to the audience is usually maybe 20 to 30 people if it's in a small temple, Kūṭambalam. But I started seeing out of the 25 would be from France, or 2 would be from Germany, and people were pouring in from different. So something changes the art form when this kind of an exchange happens. And so that was what I wanted to investigate. What happens to a niche art form when it becomes globalized? And that was my point that's what I researched on.
That's very interesting, because this is the first time I'm actually hearing about it. And like you said, this is very localized, right? I mean, you're introducing the term caste. You're saying there's a certain caste that performs this. And, a lot of people don't know outside of that region. They don't know about it. And for you to take Bharatanatyam to the United States, and I'm sure, in the vicinity that you have been in, for you to introduce dance form, was that a similar experience where you felt that there were some threads that were very similar?
Yeah, there are a lot of parallels, but Bharatanatyam by the 90s or even the 80s was already internationalized. It had already globalized. So a lot of changes had taken place already. However, it is still come from a region and then spread. So that is never going to go away. But I needed to step out of the box of Bharatanatyam into something that I was not practicing in order to see from a different vantage point. For me as a dancer, that was very helpful because it's like when you're in the house, you don't see what's happening in the house, but a guest comes in and sees so many different aspects. And that's the same thing that I got to learn or understand more about my art form, the way we need to, go back and have a dialogue about it, understand certain things, question certain things, which Kūṭiyāṭṭam clearly and unapologetically did, as because they had the stand-up comedian, they also had the solo female artist who would take the freedom to reinterpret stories. And these were things that were already inculcated within the form. And I'm not saying that people haven't challenged certain norms within the performance of Bharatanatyam, but for me as a dancer and a teacher, it was important to keep that in mind and see what happens when we bring it here to the United States, because we are dealing with children who identify themselves, I wouldn't say 50-50 as Indian American, but if they're born and brought up here, they are Americans. However, they do have strong roots to India. And what does that mean for them? It's very different teaching somebody in India, because I learned and taught in India, and teaching and continuing that form in United States, in California. Every state, I think, and every place takes a certain flavor which we must be able to incorporate in order for the art to grow within our community, and not just transport. We cannot expect to just transport a culture from another country into the US and not have a dialogue. Then it dies. It's just like a museum piece. And that is where my interest continues to be. How can this dialogue is a not unending process, because I see what I'm learning from my students, and I see what I can give to my students, and I still see what my guru can do for this conversation,
I guess this is where also your literary background, your background in English literature really comes in handy, because you are probably having these dialogues with your students when you present a certain item that needs to be performed, and understanding from their perspective how they see the things, how they look at that particular item that you want them to perform, their interpretation and their emotions. That's a very interesting experience, I'm sure, for you, where you're having this exchange and you're trying to bring something out of them. But again, like you said, it is as per their level of maturity, understanding, and sensibility, right? You can't expect the same reaction or the same understanding that you had when you were performing that particular item back in India, because the environment also has a role to play in it, right?
Absolutely. Let's take the example of gesture. We have mudras are so clear. We have lovely mudras to, explain anything and everything. But at the end of the day, these are culture-specific gestures. For example, in the South, we would ask, what happened? Yennada, right? But when you introduce that to a student in California who has never come across it, it would be like, that's a very different thing to say. Because in the mind, it's like, okay, is that a good job? Like, why would you ask, what is this? So that whole thing can spark a conversation of just that, what happened? And that head nod and the eyebrow, it's a whole different thing. But you see, when this is where I find dance so powerful, because you are embodying a culture and asking someone to tilt their head in a certain way, lift their eyebrows, smile, and ask what happened. And inside it does something, right? It changes the word in your mind. It's not just what happened, but what happened has many layers. When we ask that just without a gesture, or just ask someone what happened, it's very different, rather than bringing it in. So it was an eye-opener for me to even think, oh, well, that's very basic. I would assume somebody knows that when you ask this way or you twitch an eyebrow, but it's not. Yeah. It's not. These are very culture specific. Thought this, which is very exciting just to see that, because yes, most of the students who are Indians, they have some background. They've seen their parents talk a certain way, say "ayo," But for a complete non-Indian American who comes to class, even "ayo" doesn't make sense. So but in that dialogue between us, that happens. She gets a view into this particular world, not just the Indian world, but the dance world, to how something can be made poetic, and how in making it poetic, you gain more freedom in making that dialogue, rather than, because it gives you room to play. When you're doing a padam and you ask, how in many different, what happened? What happened? What happened? Now that just that monolithic how has become so multidimensional. And so they themselves, in fact, I've had adult students who've come back and said, hey, the way I've learned dance has begun to change the way I am in the courtroom, fighting a case, because now I know I have more access to certain things. Or the way I speak to somebody, I'm able to think of other ways that we can do things, the way we can dialogue.
Yeah, that is such an interesting point, because I'm sure there are parallels, right? I mean, if you're saying "ayo" in a specific way in South India, you probably have. I mean, the kids here can come up with, "Hey, we say oh no," or something similar to that. So it's connecting those two dots and saying, well, it's something like that, but not quite again, right? But also helping them to expand their emotional vocabulary, if you can call it that.
Yes. And mine too, it's a back and forth. Yeah, I understand as a teacher, you are expected to give more. Yeah, I know, of course, I'm more experienced than the student. I'm not undermining that. But also from the student's perspective, that to get into a child's shoes and to understand that is challenging, because we have a lot of expectations we have of the child, right? Which they have no exposure to. And then to kind of get a window into, hey, this child is coming from a space with, my experience is different. You got to translate. That's my job as a teacher. I should do it. At least I should make a big effort. And that's where I think magic happens. When we start making those connections, children are very, very open, very open. I love it about younger people. Not to discredit adults. It's a very different challenge for them, but they have already come with a set. For adults, it's always breaking what we have built. I'm sure if I were to start something new with another teacher, he or she's going to break me down in order for me to learn. So definitely the word and body language adding to the richness of language, and then dance itself using ancient language. We use Sanskrit, we use Sanskritized Tamil, we use Manipravalam for that Sanskritized Malayalam, all this, which we don't use in normal life. But what happens when you speak in this? Because as a dancer, you have to know the lyrics, word to word meaning, and then you have to know the overall meaning. So there's a lot of literature that a child should, begin to get educated in order to emote and dance and do it the way we do it.
How do you experiment with new themes and explore the more non-traditional dance pieces that students get exposed to, I guess, especially when you're talking about a generation that's Gen Z, and we're also talking about Alpha. It's a very different world, right, that we inhabit now. So how do you take Bharatanatyam as you have learned it, as you have understood it, and make it relevant for children in this day and age? And what is it that you're hoping to see come out of that? So I guess I'd love for you to speak on that.
Yeah, so I, in fact, love to work with children on bringing their lived lives into art form. And this is how art lives. We cannot live in Tyagaraja's time. We have to be, even when we are dancing Tyagaraja's poems, we are dancing in 21st century. The way I did it or could do it is different from the way my grand guru Kalanidhi Mami would have done it, or my guru has shown me, because her attitudes are different. And now how do we have the new generation have a dialogue with this? So a simple way I try to introduce this is, because the reality is in the US, children are not, unless they're getting ready for Arangetram, are not going 4 times a week to class. We're meeting them once a week. But we want good quality. So we don't have time to do 1 day of theory, 1 day of Nattuvangam. We got to incorporate these things together. So I put out, this is for students who are learning, I put out a theme every year and children work on that theme. So one example I can say is last year the theme for the year was amplify the jam. So they immediately understand because the wording has made them understand. So they know what their jam right now is and how do I amplify it. So then the question becomes, hey, I know my jam and I think I know how I can amplify it, but I really don't know how I can show it in dance. So then as they put in their movements, because I always encourage them, start your movements first. Don't take the music. Start your move. As you move, you see your jam change because your body is a way to think. Your body has immense potential to think and do, not just your mental, but your entire being. That is dance. Your entire being, head to toe, head to throat, to heart, to feet. Everything, when it starts moving, your thinking changes. If you have an essay, dance it, and then go back and see what happens to the essay. The essay has now become multidimensional because, hey, I felt something when I did this. I felt something when I talked about the female body. I felt something when I talked about body image. These are things that children come up with. So it's not me telling them. I just put out the theme, amplify the jam. Now they have found their own jam. And so that gives them an idea. Oh, when I move like this, when I use a mudra, when I look like this, my thinking was also getting changed. So that's one way we do it. Every year, put out a theme that's relatable for them. But in the process, they understand a lot of things very fundamental to dance theory and dance knowledge, which is how do you put lyrics into action and put yourself as a co-author? All these come into them without hammering it down their throats,
That sounds incredibly interesting as an approach. How do you witness gender norms playing out in Bharatanatyam? When you look at the kids today, do you see that there's it's always girls and very few boys, or how does that play out?
Well, that's both in India and the US. In India, too, male dancers are there. It's not as common as female. We just have to accept it. And that's because of very practical reasons. At the end of the day, most men are expected to be able to provide financially. And in order to stabilize in an art form, it takes a lot. It takes a lot. Maybe that expectation is not that much on the female. So it's easier. I'm not saying that it's not there. In today's day and age, you have to. I have to. Every other dancer has to. However, I think that's one of the practical aspects. But then there's the already embedded, norm. Okay, a woman dances, a man doesn't. Might not be so much from India, where in South India and North India, men dance, yes. But in the US, very, very interesting to see as much that we speak of gender equity. There's no gender equity in any part of the world. We just have to accept it. Is there gender fluidity? That depends. That's a skill. That's a skill dance teaches us. But we already know men and women dance in all cultures. But that is something we navigate here. Very few men in the United States dance Bharatanatyam. Very few Indian boys are sent to Bharatanatyam. If they have a background, for example, my son has grown up seeing and listening and has, by the age of 7, already asked me, why am I not learning it? See, myself as a teacher had not thought of it because to both my children, I didn't want to force them into something they didn't want. But yet my daughter started at age 5. And I was hands off with my son till he said, hey, when am I going to do it? And immediately I started with him and saw that he has it. The rhythm kind of fires him up. Today he's 14, but I can see that he's leaning toward becoming, participating more in the manly sports and activities and everything. So it's his choice, but he still lands up for class and he does stuff, which I'm very happy about. But it does expand his sense of masculinity. This is my understanding I've seen with my personal experience. if he does not do dance class here, there is no space for him to understand something like there was a specific Muruga Shabdam we did in which we say Man Talir Nail, means like tender coconut, tender mango leaves, Muruga's body's fragrance. And the girls got it, but my son was like, his body smells of mango. That was his question. And then I realized this is a time for you to get into poetics, because unfortunately they've not been introduced to this kind of a poetic world. But now he gets it. He sees, okay, there's ways to describe beauty, not just feel it. When you see something, but how do you put it into words? How do you make, parallels? And so that Shabdam, he was much younger than 14 at that time, but that helped. And I always think that's a good thing. You got to expand your sense of masculinity. It cannot be just, baseball and the macho thing. That unfortunately, boys are very much, there is a push to keep that much more. I think for femininity, you have more of a broader spectrum. I don't think people would really question if you're walking around in jeans. That's very common. But if boy was to wear a Bharatanatyam costume, it's suddenly like, oh, it's a question mark. Oh, so that it is important to expand both.
Yeah.
Both for, yeah.
I guess it's just, the way our society thinks, right? The parents, they're just consciously pushing kids in either direction. If you're a girl, you're supposed to do these things. And of course, now, like you're saying, with girls, it's a lot more acceptable to do things that also fall on the other side of the equation. But when it comes to boys, there's no effort whatsoever to even expose them or introduce them to something like dance, because that's just not part of the culture, right? So how can parents start thinking about this? I think this is important, what you touched upon. Really connecting the individual with their whole self, right?
Yes. Well, when we're talking about connecting them to the arts itself, that is one thing. As Indian diaspora, unfortunately, we're very much still in the game of being the model citizen. So it is the STEM. The arts are not given that importance, what we do when we're in India. Schools support dance, support music, every school has it, but in the US, it's a different, depending on which school you're going. So I think for Indian parents, it is necessary to know art is as important as math. We have so much math going on in Talam, and the way we even explain the Talam, how the fractions happen and how it comes to a whole and how it can be cyclical. And if you pause it here, math feels a certain way. This is a different thing now. Children say, there is no feeling in math. And I always say, it's absolutely feeling in math. You say, ta kita, dik kita, tom kita, nam kita. You just divide 12 into threes and it feels a certain way, and you divide 12 into fours. Taka dhimi, taka jano, taka dhimi. That's also 12 divided by 4, but it has a totally different feel. Then you put a pause here and you jump here. This is math too. This is absolutely math. So, but, we can't bifurcate all of this. This is very important for every child to have some sort of art education. It's a must, because it allows them to open their mind, not just think in fact, the best doctors often would have been trained in or exposed to deep poetry or literature. Leonardo da Vinci, right? You can't say he's just a scientist. He was everything. And so were most of our munis and rishis and even our gurus. My own guru, Shamlanti, was a zoologist who pursued dance, who still continues to dance. My father dances now. He's a seafarer, but he took up dancing at age 80 because he's finding something worthwhile and life-giving about art. And in all that, because we were so exposed to dance so much, dance is what pulled him in. So I would say that is one mindset. I know we are struggling to find our footing when you come to this country, but that is not an option. Children find ways, but it is at the end of the day, it's the way we expose. Because I was exposed to art forms in this manner, it was just part of my life. and I would say give that opportunity to our children, expose them, even if they say, oh, that's weird, because somebody's never seen so many flowers in a dancer's hair. Like, what was that? Like, but as you see it and see the meaning making behind it, all because every other culture is weird if we look at it like that. But as we see, we understand, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. This is so meaningful. I understand. I relate, even though I've never seen it. That word relates to me. That look relates to me,
Very interesting. I really like the way you think about these things, and you draw upon your own experiences, the education that you've been exposed to, and now also looking at what's ahead of you. So that really helps me segue into our next segment, your X Factor, where I'd love to learn about what's central to your personality. What is it at the end of the day that really motivates you and gets those juices flowing?
I want to say courage. It's not just and this goes out for all dancers. Without courage, you can't even think of becoming a dancer, because it is not, there is no security, right? You are going into a field knowing you are on your own. There is no, at this point when you're on your own, there is no safety net of, when you go for a regular corporate position. You're making a choice, not because you didn't have a choice. You're making a choice because you have all these options, but I still chose because I want to do something, which is just speaking to me so much, I have to do it. In fact, to the point, maybe it's a privilege that I could continue in the field of dance itself, because a lot of artists must be able to do something. They have to sustain themselves, number one. And today, that's the beauty of it. That's the most wonderful thing happening today. A lot of dancers are self-sustained and doing things that they love and creating. So that's good. But I would say courage for sure. And now, as I have grown, I've seen people say I'm very patient with the students, but honestly, I don't know if I would call it patience. It's just wondrous to see a process happening in a student. That is very important to me. I love to see that process. How is the way it unfolds in a 5-year-old completely changes even my own mindset, For example, we try something 10 times and I still can ask a 5-year-old, let's try this one more time. For a 5-year-old to even say yes, sometimes I think about it. Would I do this? Like, would I repeat? How many times will you hold Natya Rambam and hold up the shoulders down, elbows up? This grammar is very important. We have to inculcate that before we start experimenting. So what is it that makes a 5-year-old say, okay, I'll do it? And then at the end of it, if she's tired, the only thing she resorts, mostly is just jump on you and hug you and say, I'm done. It's very different from what an adult would do. I mean, I think this is good to learn, right? A 5-year-old didn't just say, I'm done. But she just jumped on you and said, okay, today's, So that for sure, just to see that unfolding in someone else. And another thing I love to see is, my guru and my parents definitely, that is actually my guru's thing. The ability to bring out, a sahriday, a heart that can just meld with, at the end of the day, with the Indian art forms, is just an experience of the divine without having to talk about a God, But that experience, Indian dance is so structured toward it. And I want everyone I come in touch with to be able to, not to say that I'm the spiritual person. No, just as you and me as a human being, I found something so beautiful. Try it and see what it does to you. If you've never danced, just try once. That for me, for sure, And it's a very unique feeling to see the entire being involved in a process, and you can understand so many things about the real world. How is the politics of, gender being played out? I know gender is a much thrown out word there, but it's not just gender. It's, for example, from India, caste still exists. Okay, you are non-Hindu, but you dance. That question itself is a loaded question, right? But this is the process. This is the world. This is our dialogue. When we dance, we are unfolding many things. This is the importance of it. It's okay to ask, you're non-Indian, I'm non-Hindu, but how come you dance? That's a very common question. I don't say we should shut it down, but in dialoguing that, in practicing that, and I have that unique perspective, being a non-Hindu, practicing as a dancer, because I get this is important here because a lot of people don't practice any religion. However, we come in touch with the divine, even children, even when they do Adharam Madhuram, just the fact of doing that, they may not even have heard of Krishna. A lot of kids have, but I'm not saying you should practice, you should be worshipping as a god. But the fact that you can say that your lips are sweet, your eyes are sweet, your heart, it brings out something, no?
You may not worship a certain deity, or you may not know anything about them, but just that process of going through that experience and discovering a lot about yourself in doing so. I think that is so beautiful in itself. And that is why I think that there is this whole concept of cultural exchange and people not worrying about, man-made boundaries and, the geographical constraints, to go all out and learn about different cultures in different parts of the world, which I think is what we need.
I don't want to discredit boundaries, but there is a point when the boundaries are not helpful. It is in fact acting against humanity. That's why any artist might say this. That's why art is absolutely important. There should not be a question of this school cannot afford the arts. You have to, or you will not be able to afford the mental health that comes with, you can clearly see without any effort, a child comes in frustrated, whether it's a high schooler or even, they might have had a fight with, who knows, a child might have been bullied, comes here, and as you dance, you're told, hey, just smile a little bit, just smile. And even unwillingly smiling and doing it, they just skip happily out of class, and then you get entering a world of fantasy, you're entering a world of all these mythologies, and then you see, hey, the gods are as bad as us too, they stole and they said lies and they did this, but there was a divinity in it, I just hope that happens, that seems to be a constant fight, but I think it should not be a struggle to get funding or to think, I don't have the money to send my child to an art class. You find a way, if not, bring art into your house,
There's so many good things come out of this. Like you talked about how this can actually be therapeutic and really help with mental challenges, right? I mean, mental health is such a big issue, and for children to be exposed to this and allow them to freely move and through movement, problem solve, right?
Exactly. You said it, Anu. Problem solving without having to try so much, you can actually, and we've done these kind of plays where you can just solve a problem by just acting it out. Just get up, move, and see what happens. For example, a student might say, I can't get from upstage left to downstage right. I have no idea how I can do it within this time frame. Yeah, you have to move within the time frame. That's the talam you have. Go figure. And then she does a couple of moves. She picks out of her tool bag, does a takadimi or does a brahmari or does a jam. And she says, I actually reached here and maybe I can add a tattimit and now I'm here and I can finish with a flourish. Okay, so that's how you physically do it. Now there are conceptual things too. For example, how do I move from this bhava to the other and link it? It's the same process. You play with it and see, you can make the links, And in making the links is what you and I will learn. Hey, I learned something new today.
It's been very, very interesting. I almost feel that you should, do these workshops. And if you're not already doing that, more so for the parents than for the children themselves, where you're able to talk about the benefits of dance and how it can actually impact your entire personality and your well-being. Because just listening to you seems like there's so many things that we don't understand beyond the optics. We go to a performance, we see the children perform to traditional pieces that seem like that's all there is to dance, but there is so much more.
Yeah, what you see on stage is not even the tip of the iceberg. It is what you see on stage is the grammar they learned. It's like you're learning English. You have to know where to put the conjunctions and the punctuations. Yes, you have to learn it, even though if it looks repetitive. But in the process, there's much more that has gone to building that child, which I don't think even my parents don't know the amount that my guru has invested in me. My being, literally a lot of it, even the way I move, of course, the way I move, I owe it to my guru and my grand gurus, because how do they say, oh, did you learn in mommy style? How do you say that? It's because it's come into my, would you say, epigenetics sort of thing. That's why I move like that. They have invested so much of them in me. I remember Guru Kalyani Kutyamma, that's in Mohiniyattam, when she came for my Arangetram, spoke a vision into me, and I was too young to even recognize it. But today I think, oh my God, what an act of generosity that she saw a vision in this dancer, which I had no idea about, but I can stand on it today and say, oh, my Grand Guru saw this vision in me, therefore I take it forward like this, And because she was a poetess, she was a writer, she was a dancer, she was a mother of 4 children, I believe. That's a very traditional woman, but who did it all.
That is indeed very beautiful to learn about, your guru's journey and how that has played such an integral part in your own life, and how you.
My guru, definitely. It's definitely a blessing and a privilege to get a dance guru who can take you. Even today, we still meet. She's in Kerala, but we still meet with her on Sundays over Zoom. But that is important. That generational connection is very important in order, not just one way. She also allowed us to question, continues to allow us to she takes same thing. I have to get the feedback from the children too. That is just life, isn't it? We can't talk at, we talk with or speak with.
Very well said. Elizabeth, we'll now move on to our final segment from here, which is your self-care. I'd love to learn, how do you take care of yourself at a mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual level? What do you do on a regular basis to nurture yourself?
Yeah, well, it's a challenge, but I will say there are, at this phase in my life, there are non-negotiables, which is other than dance, of course, dance by itself, just the process of getting up and holding a mudra and moving to music and, dancing with others. There is nothing like it. That is my experience. There's nothing. I cannot, I meditate. I'm a TM practitioner and I'm very regular at it. If I miss 2 days, I can already see I'm, so that is very important. But dancing is definitely my go-to. But you still have to enhance it, because we have to upkeep we have so many stresses that go on through the day, endless physical stresses, mental stresses. So meditation, and I say this to my high schooler students too, meditate. Even though you dance, you must have some form that takes care of your mental, and not just mental and spiritual. That is important. Because it's not about a question of your faith or belief in a certain religion, but in believing in something bigger than you that changes your perspective from all, what will I do? This is never ending, but what can you do? What can you do? This is an important question that is needed for us to just stand stable, So that definitely meant that meditation and dance is a huge part. I think that pretty much covers a lot, because it's almost I know it's almost daily. By weekend I switch off. I'm with, because my my son still needs to be taken to all his activities, so I do not teach on the weekends. But I'm dying to dance by Sunday. Yeah.
I can hear that, because it's such an integral part of who you are, your being. Yes. And so much joy and value and meaning that you derive out of this art form, and what it means to you at so many different levels.
And to see this great feedback from adults who are in the corporate world, who have danced all their lives, and then they don't get a chance to dance, and then they go join something else, kickboxing. It's to keep your physical, and then the frustration of it. Hey, I can really kickbox well, but I'm missing something. And so you come back to dance, because it's your entire being. And I know all art forms do speak to your spiritual, but there's something, maybe because I'm a Bharatanatyam, a Mohiniyattam practitioner, but it's immediate that the entire being, including your spiritual and emotional and physical, there's nothing that compares, So that's why I feel the adult students, when they come back for something deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they know the value of it
And they
finally.
want to take care of themselves, and
Right. So that's what, it's true, because when you're a kid, you almost have to be forced into it and, constantly reminded that you have to go for dance classes. But it's only much later in life, life comes a full circle when you realize what you're missing, because there's some point where things click. And
yeah,
at that point, you start appreciating, and then life goes on, right? Things may or may not work out the way you envision.
yeah.
But you've given up dancing for whatever reason. It's never too late. Like you said, your father, 80s,
Never, yeah. I've never seen him dance before, but now actually it's amazing to watch how he balances, does a chakkar, and he's at 81, he's still stabilizing after chakkar. And it's just 1 year into dancing, and he clearly said it's improved his mental and just physical well-being. He's been active all his life. He's been swimming. He's been he's a physically active person, but dance has changed something.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it will also enable him to connect at a deeper level with himself, explore
Think
things
so, yeah.
only he can do. Only he can
Yeah,
do.
but and again, when we talk about gender, right, I think men of that generation didn't have that opening or space to connect emotionally, right? Or maybe they didn't have, or they're not wired, maybe in a certain sense, to think from that angle. It's the logical angle. It's this is what I got to do. But now here I am thinking of something in a much deeper, much softer ability that allows me to think, oh, hey, it's not just one-sided. There's many dimensions, because here I am, now I'm the Nayika, then I'm the Nayaka, then I'm the narrator. So already you have three different perspectives. I see this in the children, because they always say, oh, which one am I? I'm like, we're all of it. You're moving from one to the other. This is you're always doing this multidimensional perspective,
It's fascinating. Just listening to you is wonderful. The way you're talking about these different aspects of dancing, and I hope women or men or whoever's watching this, if they have boys, they will get inspired to at least start thinking about it. Put that bug in their head. So
Yeah, I
it's
would love to have them come
you
if
know,
they're in my locality.
absolutely, and I'll share those details in the description below. If you have a link to your website or Facebook page, I'd love to add that as well. It's been such a wonderful opportunity to converse with you about your passion for Bharatanatyam and what you've done with this art form. Get to know your perspective, and it's just always fascinates me when I talk to artists. How they view their worldview also. Forms because of their art form and how they look at these different things and. Uh, it's so exciting. It's so exciting and interesting. So, well, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. And I know we can talk forever on these subjects, but we're definitely bound by some time here, limitations.
I
So,
do want to add, because I don't want to miss this, I know just in deep appreciation of the way you have even taken time to want to interview and interrogate or understand from an artistic point. Clearly, you're an artist. You have an artistic mind and a heart. But the importance, just the fact that you have taken your time and you've made multiple episodes. I mean, that is an endeavor of itself, and those things are important. And I really want to appreciate, thank you for the space you provided for us to have this conversation. Yeah.
I absolutely am very grateful to you and to all the women who have graced this platform. I get to learn a lot. So I think that's my own selfish reason here that I'm doing this, because it's wonderful to learn about the life journeys of so many women who are so close to us. It's they're all around us in our communities, and I think in a world that we live in today, where there's so many things that divide us, I think there's a bright hope, a ray of hope when I listen to people share their journeys, because there's so many things that we can also find similar to and connect with. So I look for that opportunity, and I truly want to thank you again from the bottom of my heart. Any parting message before we wrap up today's session, Elizabeth?
Yes, as a dancer, I will always say, if you don't physically dance, everybody dances without their knowing, even you're walking on the road. I just tell children or others, and myself, I tell this to myself too when I'm out of the dance class, hey, you might not be actually doing atate teta. But when you're walking, you're doing a dance, you're choreographing yourself among the people. I always think to myself, don't stand talking at an entryway, because that's a wrong choreography. You have to move and allow. So if dance must be in some way or the other, the way you speak, so you're ping-ponging your conversation, not taking it off. If you're having a, intellectual time with the book, reading something, what can change in your mind, not just taking it all in. If you're physically walking, what happens? I just feel the world would be just fantastic if we took that dance perspective. So that would always be my message to myself and to anyone I come to meet.
You definitely sparked, reignited, that dancer that never was in me, and
It's in everyone.
you said it. I totally believe you. I think it's just waiting to be explored and waiting to be nurtured. And I really hope people who are watching this episode with you, at least it sparks a curiosity in them to say, hey, this is very interesting. It definitely sounds very interesting to me. And there is so much about this art form that we don't know about, and would be a great opportunity. But I think you're definitely going to leave a great legacy behind you, with the way you are going about, and your perspective, which is extremely invaluable to Bharatanatyam, because not just what dance has done for you, but it's also what you're doing for this art form. So I wish you nothing but a lot of success in all your endeavors as you promote and promulgate this ancient art form in the United States. And I wish all the best to your students who are having this great opportunity to learn from a guru like you that lives and breathes. So thank you so much, Elizabeth. It's been such an honor and such a pleasure to have you.
Likewise, same. Thank you so much, Anu. And I just loved it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.